Super Rugby Aotearoa, the Highlanders for 2021. New coach, Aaron Major's gone, and the ever popular and pretty bloody clever Tony Brown is back in charge of the Highlanders. I think for you guys down south, that would be a pretty welcome appointment. He knows his stuff, that man. He's talked a little bit before about kind of preferring to be a hands-on coach, like more an assistant coach than the actual head coach who's kind of doing all the higher level stuff. But I'm sure he'll do a good job. He's one of the smarter brains in New Zealand rugby. We'll have a look at the squad, so kind of who's come in, who's come out, who's still around from last year, the fixtures, and how you think the Highlanders are going to do for 2021 in Super Rugby Aotearoa. It's a pretty competitive competition, but they've certainly made a few changes. Yesterday I looked at the Crusaders and it was all very stable. Not so much with the Highlanders. A lot of comings and goings. Jermaine Ainsley's joined. Josh Honeck is back in New Zealand. Still got Dan Leonard-Brown, Tokolaki, Thwaites, Johnston, De Groot. A couple of additions. They've lost. They've let a couple of guys like Conan O'Donnell, couldn't get a gig with them this year. They've also let go of Nathan Vella, but he's jumped up and joined the Crusaders after Makaleo got his injury, but I think he was probably going to be surplus to requirements anyway. Coltman and Dixon are the two hookers, with Ricky Jackson there as probably your third guy. Locks, Jack Wetton's gone and joined the Tars. He played for them in that game last week where they got a bit of a hiding. And they've brought in Bryn Evans, and they've still got Josh Dixon, Paddy Parkinson, and Manaki Selby Rickett. They've also brought in a few loosies. They've brought in Billy Harmon from the Crusaders, and it's good because the Highlanders have actually already named their squad, so we can see that he's going to get a gig in his first week, which is probably what he was looking for. They've brought in Liam Squire, and they've brought in Kazuki Himeno. If you watch the World Cup, you'll be very familiar with that man. Ben Nicholas, Frizzell, Lentjes, and Misiloi are still there, as is Michaeli Tu'u. They've let go of Jesse Parete, who's gone to Japan. Dylan Hunt joined the Blues, which is an interesting choice given how stacked their back row is, but he's damned if he does, damned if he didn't, because there's a lot of loosies in that Highlanders lineup as well. So either way, it's pretty tough to get a gig in the loose forwards in New Zealand. They don't look like they've mentioned Jack Regan, who's got a gig in the starting lineup this week as well, the Irishman. But halfbacks, you've got maybe the most depth of any team. I know the Crusaders have got a good first two pairing with Drummond and Hall, Weber, Tahuri Orangi. Like, there's a few good halfbacks in New Zealand, but Aaron Smith's the number one guy in New Zealand. Falau Fakatava is like the next guy. He's an absolutely brilliant player. Mitre 10 Cup, he's been absolutely tearing it up, and he has bags of potential. And Kane Hamilton's pretty useful as well. So you're spoiled for choice at halfback. Mitch Hunt and Josh Iwane are the guys who'll be running the show at 10. Remember, Bryn Gatland has joined the Chiefs, so a little bit of movement there. Maybe the midfield is an interesting one. Michael Collins, Scott Gregory, Fetu Paya, who is injured for the season and is already out for the season, Sio Tompkinson, and Thomas Umanga Jensen. Plus, they've signed Solomon Alemalo from the Chiefs. They've got Connor Garden Bishop, who's been injured. They got Sam Gilbert into the lineup, and they've still got Nariki and Punivai as well. Plus, Koroi has got a gig, and Nihimil Niskara is still there as well. So there's a lot of Josh Mackay obviously left to go to the Crusaders. That was a bit of a loss. Tay Walden and Rob Thompson, the two midfielders from a long time ago, are also not there. So Tavita Nabura hasn't got a gig, but he's been really struck down by a lot of injuries, that guy. A lot of changes in the Highlander squad. But if there's a guy who's going to get them to click, it's probably Tony Brown. The opening squad, if you haven't seen it, the Crusaders haven't named their team yet as I record this, but the Highlanders have already named their first squad. It's Dan Leonard-Brown, Ash Dixon, Siate Tokolaki, Dixon and Reagan in the second row. Frizzell, Harmon, and Mikaeli Tu'u are the back row. So it's a pretty good starting lineup, you'd have to say. Maybe the Crusaders will look to get on top of them at scrum time. The Crusaders have certainly got some of the best locks in New Zealand, if not the best locking pairing with Scott Barrett and Sam Whitelock. But that loose forward trio will compete with anybody. Aaron Smith and Mitch Hunt has got the nod ahead of Josh Ioane to start with. That's an interesting call. Tompkinson and Punivai is the midfield. Nareki, Garden Bishop, and Alamalo are on the wings. You've still got Coltman, Honock, Thwaites, Evans, Liam Squires on the bench. Fakatava, Ioane, and Renton in that squad as well. So I think overall, man, like, although when I look at the predictions, the Highlanders are picked to be last alongside the Chiefs. They're both paying $10 to win the whole thing. So they're not favoured at all. But you've got a bunch of new players in, which is both a blessing and a curse, because getting them to gel is not always easy. But Tony Brown, very smart cookie, he might be the guy to get it done. Fitupai being injured for the whole season is obviously not ideal. The fixtures list, I think, is solid. You start at home to the Crusaders. I mentioned it in the Crusaders preview. It's maybe not the ideal fixture to have first. Maybe you want the Crusaders away first, because this side's still a new side gelling together, new coach, and that game's almost always a foregone conclusion. Not always, but almost always. So if you are going to beat the Crusaders, you're more likely to do it at home. And the Crusaders squad is very stable from last year, so that might be a hard one for them to get underway fast. And then away to the Chiefs, away to the Blues. So if the Highlanders were to go none from 3, given the length of the competition, that's a hard start. But then a bye to reset and reassess. Then home to the Hurricanes, away to the Crusaders, home to the Chiefs, home to the Blues, bye, and then away to the Hurricanes. Maybe it's actually tough. I don't know. There's no real easy fixtures list given the length of the competition, but there's a bit more pressure on them to either pick up a home win or a couple of away wins early. You wouldn't want to go none from 3, that's for sure. Last season they were 4th, 3 wins and 5 losses, and that wasn't enough to keep Aaron Major his job. But anyway, we will see what happens with the Highlanders. I honestly do back Tony Brown to get these guys to their next level. If you're wondering where's Jimeno, he only arrived in the country a couple of weeks ago, and he would have been in managed isolation for 2 weeks. So he was probably never a realistic prospect for the opening round. But it'll be good to see him get underway at some point as well. Hopefully Fakatava gets some decent minutes, because he's still a growing prospect. Having Fakatava and Ioane on the bench is also, he can cover midfield as well. It's pretty good. Liam Squires on the bench. What's not to like about this Highlanders team? You guys let me know your thoughts on how you reckon the Highlanders are going to go. Super Brew pool for Super Rugby Aotearoa is open. If you think you know who's going to win the games, I'll put the link in the description. You guys can sign up and you can test your tipping knowledge for how the Super Rugby Aotearoa comp is going to go. I think we're still waiting on confirmation for who's going to broadcast this in the UK and in the US. By all the murmurings I've seen, it looks like ESPN Plus and maybe Rugby Pass are most likely, but still nothing confirmed as yet. We shall wait and see. I have it on reliable information that a VPN and using Stan, which is the Australian streaming service, and Stan has a free trial that works if you're looking for an alternative option. But give it a crack anyway. Yeah, Highlanders 2021. You guys have any thoughts? Talk to you again soon. See you later.